A factory in Montgomery, Alabama that made parts for Hyundai vehicles has been exposed for using child labor. Underage workers, in some cases as young as 12, have recently worked at a metal stamping plant operated by SMART Alabama LLC. Police, the family of 3 underage workers and 8 former and current employees of the factory said SMART, listed by Hyundai in corporate listings as a majority-owned unit, supplies parts for some of the most popular cars and SUVs built by the automaker in Montgomery, its flagship US assembly plant. Alabama and federal laws limit minors age under 18 from working in metal stamping and pressing operations such as SMART, where proximity to dangerous machinery can put them at risk. So how did we find out about this? Well, Reuters, which is the international wire news agency, learned of underage workers at the Hyundai-owned supplier following the brief disappearance in February of a Guatemalan migrant child from her family's home in Alabama. The girl, who turns 14 this month, and her 2 brothers, aged 12 and 15, all worked at the plant earlier this year and weren't going to school, according to people familiar with their employment. Their father, Pedro C., confirmed these people's accounts. Police in the C's family town of Enterprise also confirmed that the girl and her siblings had worked at SMART. And it wasn't just these 3 kids. We don't know the exact number, but Pedro C's children were among a larger cohort of underage workers who found jobs at the Hyundai-owned supplier over the past few years, according to interviews with a former dozen and current plant employees and labor recruiters. Several of these minors, they said, have foregone schooling in order to work long shifts at the plant, a sprawling facility with a documented history of health and safety violations, including amputation hazards. By the way, Alabama law requires children 17 and under to be enrolled in school. One former worker at SMART, an adult migrant who left for another auto industry job last year, said there were around 50 underage workers between the different plant shifts, adding that he knew some of them personally. 50 underage workers. Another former adult worker at SMART, a US citizen who also left the plant last year, said she worked alongside about a dozen minors on her shift. Well, we don't know how much the minors were paid or any other terms of their employment, and Hyundai has responded to these troubling reports. Quoted a statement sent after Reuters first published its findings on Friday. Hyundai said, "It does not tolerate illegal employment practices at any Hyundai entity. We have policies and procedures in place that require compliance with all local, state, and federal laws." It didn't answer detailed questions from Reuters about the findings. In a human rights policy posted online, Hyundai says it forbids child labor throughout its workforce, including suppliers. And yet, unsurprisingly, Hyundai and SMART are both passing on the blame to contractors and hiring agencies, which are very, of course, popular and used frequently in the automotive industry. SMART, in a separate statement, said it follows federal, state, and local laws and denies any allegation that it knowingly employed anyone who was ineligible for unemployment. The company said it relies on temporary work agencies to fill jobs and expects these agencies to follow the law in recruiting, hiring, and placing workers on its premises. SMART did not answer specific questions about the workers cited in this story. Now, according to current and former SMART workers and local label recruiters, many of the minors at the plant were hired through recruitment agencies. The police force in Enterprise does not have jurisdiction to investigate possible labor law violations at the factory. Yes, even though kids are working there, the police say they can't do anything. Instead, the police notified the state attorney general's office after the incident. But it seems as though the state has been rather nonchalant about the allegations until recently. Mike Lewis, a spokesperson at the Alabama Attorney General's office, declined to comment. It's unclear whether the office or other investigators have contacted SMART or Hyundai about possible violations. On Friday, in response to Reuters reporting, a spokesperson for the Alabama Department of Labor said it would be coordinating with the US Department of Labor and other agencies to investigate. The former Assistant Secretary of Labor for OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is hoping consumers will revolt against Hyundai after these findings. Quote, "Consumers should be outraged. They should know that these cars are being built, at least in part, by workers who are children and need to be in school rather than risking life and limb because their families are desperate for income." First of all, I don't fault the children. I don't fault the families. Clearly, they're struggling. They're looking for work. They're looking for money. And of course, they're gonna be younger people, teenagers, other folks who wanna work. And if there's a job at a factory, they're gonna go for the jobs. But why on earth is an American company, SMART, which is subcontracted to Hyundai, how are they allowing this to happen? This is outrageous. We don't allow child labor, nor should we in the United States, in factories, automotive factories where there's lots of moving pieces and parts and there's dangers of having your limbs cut off, and that's where you're gonna let children work? I mean, fine, they wanna work at the ice cream stand, they wanna work a summer job at the pool as a lifeguard, okay. But in a factory, that's stamping out parts for cars? Really? Adrian, what do you make of the Alabama response here?
You know, this isn't 1910. We should not have children working in factories. That's why Alabama has a law saying minors younger than 16 can't work in manufacturing environments. And it's clear that's SMART. Based on this report, that SMART decided that that law does not apply to them and that they prefer to have children work there. And it's probably because they can pay them less. And that's what they're looking to leverage, because that's generally it when we have these companies engaged in illegal behavior and having individuals, particularly individuals who are not documented, within the folds when it comes to workforces, so that they can exploit the fact that those individuals can't necessarily run to law enforcement because they may not be documented. It's an exploitation situation. And this SMART plant in particular, it has been cited for repeated safety and health violations, including amputation risks. So this plant knows what it's about. And to be honest, based on the allegations, it damn sure seemed to know what it was doing. We also want to bear in mind that local law enforcement authorities didn't have any jurisdiction to investigate the child labor law violations that are alleged at that SMART plant. They had to turn it over to the state's attorney general's office and to the federal level. So that also adds another layer of making it more difficult to be able to weed out these legal violations that are exploiting young children. But the fact is that we need more entities, and also we need consumers to start holding these entities accountable, because like Hyundai, even though it's directly its plant, it is contracted with SMART. And we also know that Hyundai is one of the world's most profitable auto manufacturers, pulling in $9 billion in revenue just last year alone. So the money is there. It's a matter of, is the will to not exploit children present? And it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I wish everybody would say, wait a second, was my car a Hyundai car? Was it built with parts from Montgomery? Because then maybe SMART was involved. And look, I get that the automotive industry is based on subcontractors and supply chains, and for all the workers who actually technically work for a Ford, a GM, a Hyundai, there are literally 10 times as many workers who are involved in either stamping out parts or designing machine tools or the design process that are technically subcontractors. Still, to me, Adrian, there's a certain level of liability that maybe one could conceivably bring against Hyundai. And let's just suppose, God forbid, some kid at this Montgomery plant, 12, 13 years old, loses a limb at this SMART factory. What is the liability issue that they might be able to bring against Hyundai, even though SMART is technically a subcontractor?
Oh, they're going to sue Hyundai. You always sue the largest pockets available, and you just throw it against the wall and see what sticks. And so you let Hyundai and SMART and whoever else is on the other side of the V figure out who is liable. And I'm sure they have various indemnity provisions, and there may also just be basic common law provisions that may exempt Hyundai, but that don't matter. You go ahead and you sue them anyways. Because also because of the potential for bad press, Hyundai may be happy to give up some coins or to do something to ensure the matter is settled, and then hold SMART accountable for the behavior. But the reality is, again, we need to ensure that this is something that is addressed not only in the court of law, but the court of public opinion, because these companies do not fear legal settlements or adverse verdicts. They fear consumers not patronizing their businesses anymore. And so this is about the people using their voices.
Does the level of legal culpability go up in the future? In other words, look, Hyundai's now on notice, SMART is on notice based on the Reuters reporting that this practice is going on. It's been going on for some time. There are clearly witnesses who have talked to police, who have talked to Reuters, the Wire news agency. If Hyundai does not even, establish some sort of committee to investigate this or come up with some practices that it's going to demand of its suppliers and its subcontractors, 6 months from now, if there's an incident, does that mean that their culpability becomes even greater?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can argue all sorts of legal theories about their knowledge, especially if they happen to know of previous instances, yet they did not do anything and they continue to contract with SMART. There are so many things that you can point fingers to. It's just a matter of it needs to be pointed and it needs to be done loudly. And people do need to hold Hyundai accountable, because the thing is that even if they're not legally liable or they couldn't be proven to be legally liable on the hook, you want them to be smarter about who they do business with. You want them to be accountable by virtue of the fact that they are giving money and opportunities to SMART. They're creating this environment where children can be exploited and they're able to profit off of it. And so for consumers to hold Hyundai accountable is what is necessary, needs to be done, so it makes better business choices for who it chooses to partner with.
And I also hope that the community of in Alabama, the local communities, reach out to these families and find out, well, what is it why are the circumstances so dire that these families now have to try to go and have their kids get factory jobs? I mean, what is that all about? Are there not other employment opportunities? And granted, I'm sure factory jobs, manufacturing probably pays a lot more than if you're, scooping ice cream cones or working as a lifeguard. But are there other opportunities for the kids, or are manufacturing jobs at the local plant that's helping the automaker? Is that the only place that some kids and some families can really turn to for financial help?
It's my understanding that in this Montgomery County, so let's say the median household income is $49,000 and about 20% live below the poverty line. Also, I believe the community is about 60% Black, 30% white. So it's not necessarily wealthy or necessarily very prosperous at all. It definitely seems that the community struggles to a large extent, but it's also my understanding that a lot of these young children who were found in this facility were children who were undocumented or their families had come here. And so that tells you that is a level of exploitation that is going on there. Primarily also just given the nature of the communities around this factory, it's not flourishing. It is not doing well. There aren't a lot of opportunities, and there probably aren't a lot of people in positions of power who can speak out and make for meaningful change. And especially when you have local law enforcement that just throws its hands in the air and says, sorry, we can't do anything about it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.